Hello and welcome. Today something a little bit different. It's going to be a commentary on today, September 4th, Model Monday Live solved by Toby. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up. But basically, this was Toby's first attempt at the sheet metal part in Onshape, and he did run into a couple little issues, but he did power through in the end and got an answer. But I wanted to go over what went wrong and some of the ways that it can be fixed, because it was an interesting learning moment. But I figured rather than type a 2-page long comment on the YouTube video, I would actually do a quick video response. So this is the part. Nothing too crazy, although there's a fair amount of stuff going on here. And one thing that he does mention is that Onshape favors modeling sheet metal parts by doing a convert, start with a solid and then convert sheet metal, although it's not the only way to do it. But it is kind of generally the better workflow, although this part is a little bit tricky to do that way. But the hybrid approach that he uses is actually quite a good way of doing it. Anyway, let's put that over to my other monitor, and we're gonna watch a little bit, mostly fast forward, and then until the trouble happens, and I'll go over how to fix it. So he's gonna talk about the strategy for drawing that part. Then he starts off with the profile here. Still some SolidWorks carry over here. If you're just going to extrude the whole thing anyway, this is really, I would draw it just 2 rectangles in a circle, which would be a little bit quicker, but this works just fine. Same here, I would probably just use a chamfer. Since it's a 45-degree chamfer, it's a pretty simple way of doing it on a solid. Then this all goes well. Talks about, he does go about the convert sheet metal, which is one of the options, but in this case the thicken option is actually better, and that's the one on the right here. And we use convert, you pick the solid and it grabs every face in your solid, but if you do a thicken, you can pick he only wants 2 of all these faces, so you could just pick the 2. The only weird downside is that when you use the thicken, it doesn't by default get rid of the solids, so you have to do a delete part after, but I'm going to go over that in a sec. But all that was, that's fine. Now this is where it gets interesting. So Onshape is generally quite well thought out, I find, but the sheet metal is really kind of one of the areas that's kind of the exception, where he's looking for the option to make the flange entirely outside, including the bend radius, but it does not exist in Onshape, which is very odd, and I'm not sure why it hasn't been added yet, but he's looking for something that does not exist, so it's not that he didn't find it, but you can't do it like this in Onshape. There's a couple different ways to solve that, and I'm gonna go over that in a sec. But essentially, it's just not an option. There's a middle option that doesn't make sense because the other tools don't even have the middle option, like the sheet metal feature. Whether you use a thicken or an extrude, doesn't have a middle option, so I'm not sure why the flange has a middle option, because I've never actually found a good use for it, but anyway, doesn't matter. So then he finally tries, so he's on the right track here, but the extrude doesn't work on an active sheet metal. You can't do that on an active sheet metal like this. But what I would actually have done here is use a move face on that face instead of the extrude, and that would have worked, and that would have kept him going. So that was one option to solve it. Then he does a tab, which is a valid option, but then he gets stuck with the relief, trying to get rid of the relief, and you can't delete sheet metal faces, but there's actually the proper way to solve this is actually to go back and edit the sheet metal model and change the corner relief. The other option would be to go into sheet metal tools and do a corner relief feature, which lets you override it. But generally speaking, Onshape does not let you hack and slash through corner details. It keeps track of all of it internally, and you can't easily brute force it to do what you want. Now I'm actually gonna stop here and jump in and do a little bit of modeling, because there's actually a couple interesting things that I want to show here. So I'm going to move that over to the side. I'm going to start basically similarly, do a sketch on the top plane, and then just do, so I would just do two rectangle. This is 55 by 90, and the other one would be 75 to the center by, it's a 12 radius, so 24. Then go into a circle, and that's it. Just leave it at this. Extrude that to, what's the total, what's the height, 75 for this. And that's good. And then put a chamfer on here, 30 millimeter, 45 degrees, yes. So up to here, we're basically, other than the way of doing the sketch, it's the same thing. So now I'm gonna do this, and instead of converting, which adds all these parts, a good tip is you can also always have the flat available. But instead of doing a convert, I'm gonna do a thicken and grab just the parts, the sides that I actually want, which are these two, and bend. Otherwise, it works the same way as the convert. And actually created a variable studio here, so that I have thickness and radius available as variables, just in here. This way, any tab that I create, because I was playing with this, I made multiple ones. So this way, I had my variables available everywhere. And I think we're good here. It just has to go inside. So up until now, so the only thing is, because I did a thicken rather than a convert, I still have my part, but I can just delete it here with a delete part feature. And now we're basically at the same stage. So if we wanted to do the tab approach, you can go like this, and then do a 10 millimeter rectangle, and then create a tab from this. Now, I'm getting relief as well, but interestingly, if you just left it alone and ignored it for a bit, when you do create a flange on here with a distance of 60, and then use the outer, because we created a 10 millimeter thing, it takes care of the relief and gets rid of it automatically. So the problem goes away here, which is kind of funny. And then doing the same method of adding a tab here, and this would be 32 by 10. Now in this case, we're definitely gonna have that relief when we add the flange. And how long is that one? 75. And we want the outer, and now we have that relief. So if you had a part that had where you needed reliefs in places but didn't want it here specifically, you could actually go in here in the sheet metal tool and go to the bend relief tool, and essentially lets you basically you can pick an existing relief or an existing corner that does not have a relief and basically change the type or the size or change it to a tear, which essentially removes it. So that's how you fix one like this. But really, what in a model like this where you don't need bend reliefs, you would go down here, change that. So if I turn on final, and final, by the way, rebuilds the tree live as you change things. So I'm editing feature up here, but if I change, any of these dimensions, I get to do the end of my rollback bar, which is really helpful to preview what you're doing. But basically all he needed to do was change to a tear here, and all of these problems would have been gone. Except obviously for the whole starting flange from the inside bend radius, that still is not available. But what I wanted to do is either start here, not using the tab, and there's a couple of things you can do. So you can create a flange here, like he started doing initially. What's that, 160? And then go, it doesn't really matter, you could use either or. Actually, I'm going to use, so outer aligns the outer face with the edge, inner aligns the inner edge. And I'm actually going to do this here. And I know it's wrong, but all you have to do is use the move face, which works extremely well in sheet metal and is actually an integral part of the process. You can basically just pick one face and it will figure out all the corners and everything for you. And if you're using variables, you can just say, well, it just needs to be offset by the radius. And that's how you get this. And just out of curiosity, what does so no relief happens here, because it will handle that. Just like we made the tab, where it created a relief on the tab, but then when you create the flange, it removes it. This does the same thing. And you can also use the same ideas and use the flange tool on here. Go the other way, 75, and then use the partial flange option. So partial flange lets you not use the entire edge, and here you want the other side. So that's what that does. And per edge lets you, if you were to pick multiple, a chain of flanges, per edge would offset each one by the end, or per chain would just affect just the one end of the chain. But anyway, in this case we want to do this, and then for the end condition, really what we want is entity with offset, and then we can pick this end as our reference, and then the offset is our width, which is 32, I believe, yes. So again, we've got our relief here. I don't think, yes, I'm on the inner, so actually you can use the same move face feature if I just move it here, except, never mind, scratch that, because that also affects this edge now. So let's not do that. So let's do this and then do another move face, this by the radius of the bend. And now we've got our flange in the right place. We just have to get rid of this, either by, really the proper way of doing it is just switch this back to a tear. And then we're good. And then the last thing I would do here is actually create a sketch directly on the flat pattern, which you can always do. So we'll go here, start a sketch, then go, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Some construction line, this is 14, this is 36, then I'm going to go into a slot, not construction, 20 is correct. And then we also need that, we can do that corner cut in here as well. That's 17. And then, what's that? So that one's 30. And why not just keep going and put our 10mm hole here. And then I can go straight into an extrude. And you only get add or remove here. So you can use this instead of a tab to add material to your flat pattern, or just use the remove, and you don't get extrusion depth because it will use the thickness automatically. And that's how you can create this. And I guess I just need the fillet on here still. And actually the fillet, because it only lets you pick corner, you can just box select this. Actually it does try to pick these edges, smaller box, to get the two corners. And I believe this should be the right mass. Yeah, that rings a bell. Anyway, this is how I would fix the issues that we ran into. And if I was to do it myself, you can. I mean, this is probably a very good approach. And then the move face, you can do it like this, or probably I would move it before the flange. So I would, instead of moving the flange, I would say move this face, which is how I would have done it. Move this by the radius, or even you could do radius plus thickness. Even though it works either way, you just have to use the right flange, the inner or outer, depending what you do. And interestingly enough, again, you get this corner that follows and does its thing, but once you create the flange, it takes care of it basically. And also the preview in Onshape is the final result. So if the preview looks wrong, there's no point accepting the feature and hoping it's going to change, because it will not. The preview is the actual feature. It's not like a lighter version like in SolidWorks, where sometimes preview is wrong, but you hit OK and it figures it out. In Onshape, the preview is what you get. But yeah, I would do it this way probably. The only other way I would consider, oh wait, I've got a whole bunch of other features going on because this is rolled back. Oh, that's it. So this is a good way of doing it. The other thing I do want to show is using a feature called, it's a custom feature, but it really should be part of the Onshape tools, and that is the one called the Shaped Flange, and I'm gonna go over that in a sec. 7524 circle. I might as well put this one in here too. Helps do this construction. Extrude this to 90. That works. Yep. Do our chamfer here. Oh, another interesting quirk with Onshape is that the chamfer tool often struggles with sheet metal, and I'm not sure why, but it was interesting that he didn't try using it, but he probably would have run into trouble because it, for whatever reason, it does not like active sheet metal parts, which is unfortunate. So there's a few things they need to fix still in the sheet metal world in Onshape. Although I think they are actually doing some changes to add the ability to put countersunk holes and other form features. So hopefully part of that process they will fix things. So what I wanted to show was I'm going to go into a sketch and create basically that shape that we want. Actually, this is, let's start from this side. So we want this to be 60, and another one that would be 32 by 10. And actually this tool requires a single region, unlike a lot of Onshape tools. But I can go here, so I created it just on the end here. And then if I go somewhere in my custom features called Shaped Flange, and that's a feature script that, as I was just saying, should really be part of Onshape. So this lets you draw the shape of a flange as in its own sketch. And right now it's still on that face, but you could offset the sketch itself, but it also has an offset distance option here. So you can just say, I want this out by the radius, and that's one easy way to get that. And you don't have to, you can, so I could use it again here, for example. I could say, let's do the same thing here. Let's create this, which is, I keep forgetting that one, 75. Oh, no, not this distance. This side is 75. And then I could add a line here. That's 14, 36, a slot, not construction. And then I can go shape flange again and pick this, and then this time you can control flip side. You can use it to kind of go the other way around, like this. I mean, I could have also not created this tab in the earlier one. So you can mix and match all these techniques, obviously, but the shape flange custom feature is I use it all the time because it does come in very handy. Anyway, that's about really all I wanted to do. I mean, there's other ways you could do this. There's some interesting. I did try, for the fun of it, to create this entirely as a solid. Actually, I can walk through that. That might be interesting. It's definitely not the easy way, but what I ended up doing was basically creating. So I just started with the one sketch, but I added both sides. And the one weird thing is that because some of it is has to go on one side of the solid and some of it on the other side, so I ended up overlapping these two by the thickness. And these are the dimension of the bottom flange. This is that region. And then the other one, we really want this. This part is really the part we care about. And then there's this very top edge. So I started like this, extruded the whole thing downwards first, just to give us that face to thicken later. Then extruded this area up. Then extruded the region for that top little finger separately. And then I did have to cut out that corner, so I did that with a sketch and an extrude to remove that. And then I guess I still had, what did I have to move? Right, this was still facing the wrong way, basically, because when I do a thicken, I need to go into everything. So I ended up doing a move face by one material thickness to bring that one up. And it took me a couple tries. Like the first time I got it, I had the wrong dimension. It's possible, but it's definitely not the easiest. So I did this chamfer, this 30 degree by 17 chamfer. Put the fillets up here as well. You might as well when you're doing this. I mean, I could have put the hole in here too. I'm not sure why I didn't do it. And then I created a thicken by picking, all of these faces, and then adding the bends, and that creates the sheet metal delete feature to get rid of that body. And this is a way to get this, but again, possible. And then I did the final cleanup directly on the flat pattern again for the final holes. But this was not an easy one. I tried another method too, which was kind of cool. And the way I did that, I said, okay, I'm gonna just do sketches first, all the faces basically. So I created a sketch here, then created my second sketch like this, third one here. And one of the easy way of doing this is to use a mate connector to locate each sketch. And this also lets you pick because sketch regions create faces, essentially, really surfaces. Internally, I think they're almost the same as a surface. But if I want to create a sketch to create that other side, I don't need to create a sketch plane. I can actually use a mate connector directly to define the origin of my sketch, and including which way is up. So this shows me the z-axis of my sketch is this way, so the outside surface would be over there, but I actually want it pointing this way. And now it's flipped around. So now I can do, actually, I do that all the time. I need to close this and move out of this box before I do anything else. But then I can do my flange, which is, when I can cancel it because that's what I did. But I just wanted to show using the mate connector for the origin facing the right way. And then did that same thing at the top. And then the interesting thing is that I did a zero offset surface. So basically convert all of these to actual surfaces so that I could boolean them all together, and basically create that reference face to use for the thicken. And this was actually easier to do than the solid option, because there's a lot less worrying about which face needs to move, even though I did end up with both this one and this one are outside of the surface. So I just created a move face feature, and you can do both at once. I'm going to hide the surface. You can literally move this and this by the radius, or actually the thickness is what I want. And this brings them inside of my reference surface. So this was kind of a fun little way of doing it. Actually, I already have that move face feature. Oh, and then I still had the corner relief turned on in my sheet metal, so I just did it as a remove the bend relief. And it works both ways. So if I did have this set to tear, basically this is, I could say, actually I do want a relief here, so give me whatever relief type you want. And you can basically do that, override the corner treatment basically, and that's its own feature. Anyway, I think that's enough for today. Enough talking and rambling, but it was fun to watch. I wish I was watching it live so that I could have added comments as I was going, because it was like you need to edit, you need to remove your corner relief type, and then everything would be fine. And then use a move face. But then the tab is it's a perfectly reasonable way of doing it. It does take more work because you need a sketch and a sketch and a feature, whereas if you use a move face, you can get it with just the move face by itself. But anyway, always fun. If you made it to the end, I'm impressed, because there was a lot of rambling. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep watching what Toby's doing, because it's been a lot of fun to follow his journey transitioning from SolidWorks to Onshape, and I went through that a couple of years ago, so it's a really fun series to watch. I'm always looking forward to the next episode. So in the meantime, happy CADing, and see you next time.